All right, so we're going to move on to the next section. And our next section is going to talk about still Objective 1 in this module, but I want to take a break just from a video size and limit of what you're watching. And we're going to say, looking at and saying, are you doing business with someone other than the patient who's paying you for your services? Recall, that's what we talked about as the reason we're having contract, because we're doing business with someone who's going to pay us other than the patient. Questions you're going to be asking are, do they have the money? What's their financial solvency? We have a lot of these hospitals, sponsored health plans. I think in our discussion board we talked about how the one hospital system used to have an insurance company and they're going to be a provider-sponsored health plan, and that lasted a couple years and then they moved on because they probably realized that wasn't their core business. What's the financial solvency? Do they have the money? Will grandma really pick up the tab? We're basically looking at when someone else is paying for it and the patient isn't, who's paying for it? And do they even know they're paying for it? This is where you check eligibility. Does United know that they're paying for this medical service? And I call it grandma. Did you call grandma and say, hey, by the way, this patient's in here. Are you going to pay for the bill? I'm checking eligibility. Great. You are grandma? Perfect. Grandma, where do I send the claim so that when I invoice you, you're going to pay it? I want to get the claims address. Well, grandma, you decided you don't want to pay it. Well, I checked eligibility and you said you would. You gave me the address to send the invoice. I sent it to you. Now all of a sudden you've decided you don't want to pay. What's my dispute resolution? A contract will help define that. Well, the timely payment laws and rules in the agreement are going to tell me, grandma, you need to pay me now because it said in the contract you'll pay me in 90 days, 30 days. You need to pay me. That's your timely payment. Well, all of a sudden now grandma wants a discount. What's the market share, the service area? And grandma questions, hey, are these bills that I paid for before, I don't think they were medically necessary. So now we're dealing with retrospective review. How far back am I allowed to go look in your medical records and say, you know what, I decided that this didn't feel right, I'm going to recoup and take that money back. Well, wait a minute, you're already sitting here listening going, they can't do that. How do they do that? When you sign the contract, these are the types of elements that exist in that contract that you need to understand and know to look at it. What is so exciting is I have as one of our assignments, we're going to walk through a contract and you're going to start seeing these things come glaring out at you as, oh my gosh, I cannot believe doctors just sign these things without looking at them and seeing what they're responsible for. So that's what we're going to kind of be looking at. So let's take a look. I'm going to sign a contract. I want to look at some basic healthcare contracting strategies. You always have a strategy. You have to have a strategy. If someone just comes in and says, here, sign this contract, does it fit your strategy? And if you don't have a strategy, shame on you. You need to look at, what is your market leverage? Are you the only provider in a rural market in a 20-mile radius where, oh, guess what? If you employ an out-of-network strategy, every health plan still has to pay you because there's no other healthcare services in that defined time area. Or if you are going to sign a contract, you better not expect to get $1.25, you better negotiate for $2.50 because you're the only thing there. What is your leverage in the market? Set negotiation targets. Come on, you know what's going to be reasonable and not reasonable. If I can't cover my costs to operate my practice, that's not reasonable. It is okay to walk away from people who are not going to pay you enough money. That's why people refuse to take Medicaid. That's why people are turning away Medicare. Those are not good payers. I'm only going to go after the business that's going to pay me revenue that can generate the patient volume I need to sustain life. I need to look at the operations of the practice. Are they going to allow me to go back and recoup, 9 months from now, 12 years from now? Those aren't operational things I can deal with. As well as when you look at this contract and this assignment that you're actually going to read, you're going to look at some of the operational obligations that contract, which is a WellCare Health Plans contract right there in New Jersey, given to me last month that says this is what you're going to do. Does that meet your operational guidelines? If it doesn't, don't sign it. Know the cost of providing a service. If it costs me more to inject Rocephin and administer it, if it costs me $12 to buy it and I'm only going to get paid $8, every time I give it, I'm going to lose money. 100% of the time, it's a losing proposition, and I don't care what volume you give to me, I lose $4 every time I give it. Guess what? Come up with another strategy. Send them to the pharmacy, tell them to get the Rocephin and bring it back, and you just administer it. You're not going to lose money on it. Or negotiate to get your costs covered. as well as you need to gather and prepare outcome data. You need to show that if you want more money, why are you so great? I've already talked about that in other modules where if you're in there and you're reducing emissions and you're reducing ER and you have outcomes and you're showing that you can manage this condition better than that condition and you're the best in the market at it, you know what? Prove it, show me the data, and then we can talk. That's exactly how health plans are going to look at it. So when you go into negotiations, seriously, it's like anything else. Listen. Don't go in demanding stuff. Listen to what they want. Understand what they need. What's their attitude towards your practice? Use this knowledge to leverage your position in negotiations and say, I understand you guys are taking a bath on juvenile diabetes. I have a juvenile diabetes program. Here's all my clinical research. Here's how I can manage and do it so well. I want to be in your network. I want to be a preferred provider. Heck, kick everybody else out. Let me be the sole provider. I'll even give you a deeper discount because I'm the exclusive provider. Make sure your costs are covered. And then negotiate. Know the regulations. What's the old laws? What's the new laws? Especially in the Nurse Practice Act. As a nurse practitioner profession, you are teaching people. If you don't know what you can and can't do in your state, I can guarantee you the health plans sure don't. As a healthcare consultant, we teach the health plans, and you'd say, well, God, why am I coaching the health plans? Shouldn't they know this stuff? No, they don't know this stuff because they don't care about this stuff. They're worried about the MD land. So it's your job to coach and encourage and push them to do the things you need done and educate them. That's part of what the whole negotiation process is about. So, end of the day, I'm at Aetna, United, Cigna, and I'm going to say, you know what? I don't want you. That was really cool. I love all your data. It's very graphical. It looks very pretty. Thanks for playing, but go home now. Well, God, what do you do now? Because you want to be in network. These patients you want to see, but seriously, the answer is no. Stop asking. Well, hold on. Let's chat about that for a minute. So, can you get kicked out of a health plan or out of a network? Absolutely. Right there is a letter that said, thank you for playing, but you don't miss our risk-adjusted cost index requirement, the utilization patterns are under review, or we just don't have enough data that compiled of episodes to know, so basically you're not eligible, so we're kicking you out. Thanks for playing. Have a great day. Well, obviously there's an appeal process, but do you think you're going to win the appeal process by whining? No, you've got strong data. Maybe you can get something across or prove that their risk-adjusted cost index is not accurate with what your practice is doing. I think of oncology. Oncology practices that provide chemotherapy services in their office are going to be much more expensive than an oncology practice that does not. When they profile my two practices that are both oncology practices against each other, who's going to be the outlier? Of course, the practice that is doing the chemotherapy in their office is going to be outlier because it's so much more expensive. But they need to look at the big picture because the other practice just sent all those patients to the hospital or outpatient center to have it done. I guarantee you the chemotherapy I'm doing in my office is a lot cheaper than what the alternative practice did. So you are not looking at the full picture. You're only looking at a slice of the pie. I want the whole pie. So those are types of arguments that actually I would say about 4 years ago when we first started this economic profiling game was a lot more fragmented. I think now everyone's kind of wised up and it's really getting tighter, which is making it a lot more sexy and fun to hang around in because it's true data showing outcomes. No network need. Well, by God, if I'm going to have a network and I'm going to try to steer business to those loyal providers who signed a contract to accept lower rates, and I need to steer business to them because they're my partners in my network, I cannot have any willing provider who wants to sign a contract be in it. Meanwhile, say I'm Aetna, I'd only have 3 people that might be running the whole network. If I have 100 million doctors in this network, and I have all these hundreds of thousands of nurse practitioners, all of a sudden, is it really a network? Or is it just anyone licensed that can play? Well, if it's just anyone licensed that can play, When I'm the provider, I'm thinking, God, why am I offering you a discount to let your patients come see me? Because every Joe Smo is in it. Now, if you restrict it and it's a little bit more exclusive, and I know patients are going to get steered to me because if they don't come to me, they have to pay these huge out-of-network deductibles. But if they come to me, it's going to be less expensive for them. All right, well, you're going to steer patients to me, so I'll give you a little bit of a deeper discount. But if you have everybody in the world in it, and the whole neighborhood's playing, I'm not so inclined I even want to be in it. But that's where you get this no network need. Is they don't want to manage every licensed provider in the state. They just want to manage a network. And we're going to tighten that network up and start profiling people and kicking them out if they're a high-cost provider. Any willing provider statutes. Any willing provider laws require a health carrier to allow any willing provider. So if I want to be in it, I'm allowed to be in it. There are 27 states that have any willing provider statute laws right now. New Jersey is one, but in New Jersey, it applies only to pharmacies. So if I am a pharmacy, which is a healthcare provider, which is a provider of service, if I am a pharmacy, a Cigna, United, Aetna, whoever it is, cannot say, we're excluding you. Pharmacies, any willing provider law. Now, as soon as I said any willing provider, weren't you all thinking, well, that means I, as a nurse practitioner, or I, as a physician, get to be in it because I'm a willing provider? No, the 27 states that have laws limit and restrict and say, yeah, it's only required if you're a pharmacy. And even if you are a pharmacy, some states like Texas and Louisiana are preempted by ERISA. So self-funded insurances don't have to play by that rule. So in New Jersey, if I'm preempted by ERISA through self-funded, the self-funded guy can say, yeah, we're not adding that pharmacy, even though you have the state statute that says it's an any willing provider. I'm preempted with ERISA, so I don't need to worry about it. So any willing provider laws, great intent, not a lot of teeth to the statutes. But it is a way that you can kind of potentially argue to say, if your state is one that allows providers, any willing provider, being a doctor or nurse practitioner providers, you know what? Hats off to you. But, what kind of rates do you want to negotiate again? So, when I talked about operational concerns, here's an example from a contract with Cigna that says, hey, by the way, Miss Nurse Practitioner, if you inappropriately refer a participant to a non-participating provider, not a network provider, so here I am, I'm in the little network, I need to refer over to a specialist, I'm going to pick up the phone, I'm going to say, hey patient, you need to go see Dr. Jones, he's a cardiologist, I really want you to see him. Well, if you refer that patient in a non-emergency situation, and you don't have the participant's express written consent, and thereby the participant goes to there, and that cardiologist is not part of the Cigna network, and you, as a Cigna provider, refer to a non-Cigna cardiologist, shame on you. Worse, shame on you for not reading the contract, because keep reading. This says, if this occurs, this situation occurs with Cigna or any of Cigna's affiliates, remember that open-ended anybody that can access the Cigna discount, they're going to pay that non-participating cardiologist you referred to out of your future funds. Because you know what? You're a Cigna provider. You should have known better. You should not have referred to the cardiologist that you like and use all the time. He may have thought he was in network, or the front office may have told you they were in network, but you don't know for certain that he was or wasn't in network. But if he's not in network anymore, who's paying for the specialist cardiologist services? You are. Well, my gosh, that's not fair. I don't care if it's fair. You signed a contract that says, may offset the amount paid to such non-participating provider, that be your out-of-network cardiologist you refer the patient to, for such services against future compensation to you. Fair or not, that's what you signed. Well, wait a minute. Maybe I don't want to be in network with Cigna. Or if I'm in network with Cigna, that means if I look at this card and I know this is a Cigna member, I'm going to stop referring to the cardiologist, Dr. Jones, and I'm going to say, dear Cigna member, you need to see a cardiologist. Here's a referral to any cardiologist of your choosing. You pick. Bye-bye now. You cannot direct refer because then you created the obligation, and guess what? That means you're going to write the bill. I'm sorry, but we're not writing bills and paying out-of-network providers because you referred to your friend. So, go to the source if you want to be in the network. Let the customer employer know these things, because then all of a sudden you can say, hey, this isn't fair. So keep this in mind. This is true contract language. I didn't make this up. I pulled it right out of their contract. How many doctors signed it? How many doctors might even be paying those out-of-network providers and not even know it? That's the scary part, because it just gets recouped. The business office, bang, 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 they're just processing it, managing it, and didn't even realize it. This is why I get upset with practices that don't have strong infrastructure. So, understanding the strategy behind having or not having a contract. So, that's sort of the second part of the first objective. We're now going to move on to the next objective.